Okay, so the next lady I would like to tell you about is Freya Stark, and she was born in 1893. And Freya, ever since she was a young girl, was fascinated by the Middle East. And she always said that it was because one of her aunts gave her a copy of the 1001 Arabian Nights, and she just became enchanted with all the stories. And with Freya, like with a lot of the women that you see from this kind of time, the late 1800s, early 1900s, the key to actually getting herself where she wanted to go was education and reading. So she read as much as she could about the place where she wanted to go. She learnt the languages, and it actually took her quite a long time because she was born at a time when, you know, the First World War happened. Basically, she helped as a nurse in the First World War. And it was only as she was slightly older that she actually got the opportunity, first of all, to go to somewhere like Damascus, and then to actually take herself out into the desert on, again, solo expeditions, to go to some of these places that she'd read about in the classics of literature, like the writings of Marco Polo and people like that. So that was her ambition. And again, she found that whenever she went to some of these places, because she really devoted her life to traveling in the desert countries, she was finding that a lot of people were asking her, well, why are you going? You know, do you have a particular field of study? And in a way, it was a little bit like Isabel Wiley Hutchison, who had botany as the reason for her traveling. With Freya, she really felt that she didn't need to give a reason. And one of the favorite things that I think, one of my favorite quotes by Freya is that she said, and I know in my heart of hearts that it's the most excellent reason to do things simply because one likes the doing of them. She didn't feel as if she ought to give any kind of scientific purpose to what even though she was going into places that were unmapped a lot of the time. And she had actually been trained. She got some training at the Royal Geographical Society in London to do surveys, to actually help map some of these countries that she was passing through. And she was also on the trail of some archaeological sites. You know, she'd hoped that she would be able to uncover some treasures. You know, that was one of the reasons for her going. But the main reason was just because she loved it. And she had this kind of indomitable spirit that took her to these places, as she said, simply because she enjoyed it. And it turned out that she was much better as a solo traveler. And you do find this with quite a few of these women. And especially with Freya, she'd tried traveling with other women with disastrous results, because they had a falling out on quite a large scale. And I think it was probably because the other two women that she was traveling with were academics. They had an agenda, they had work that they had to do. And they wanted to keep themselves, although they were traveling through countries where the conditions, the places where they were staying were quite basic, they were very much keeping themselves on the safe side of being the Western European lady. Whereas Freya wanted to experience everything. Even if it meant putting herself in the way of catching illnesses and falling ill, or putting herself in dangerous situations, she wanted to experience these places as they were experienced by the native people. And because she could speak the languages, because she had this natural gift with languages, she was a real communicator. She could always get somebody to do what she wanted. She could get somebody to show her the next step or where she needed to go. And so really that's what she devoted her life to. And she became, Freya's books, I absolutely love her books. I mean, she's still celebrated today as one of the world's most talented travel writers. And she lived until she was pretty much 100, and even into her old age, she was still traveling. And she has this way of describing landscapes and people. I mean, it was almost as if it freed her. It freed her from all the constraints of her home life, because she'd come from a very difficult home life, quite a domineering mother. She'd had a lot of disappointments in her relationships with men, a lot of heartbreak, and it was almost as if she was leaving all that behind her, and she was it was almost like a metamorphosis of she was coming out into, she was blossoming into this woman that she really wanted to be. And the desert people and the desert landscapes allowed her to be that. And you see that so often with these women when they go into the unknown. It's almost as if they're breaking all the shackles and casting them off. And they were very much aware of it. You know, they were very aware of it at the time and what they were doing. And even if they'd wanted to stop, they couldn't, because it was the compulsion, you know, it was their calling. And I really admire Freya for that, because again, you know, she wrote some beautiful books. She put forward some interesting studies, you know, she went to some places, that archaeological sites that had remained pretty much undiscovered for centuries. And yeah, I mean, she really, again, she annoyed a lot of people, but my goodness, you know, she won a lot of respect as well and from geographical institutions. She came to RSGS 1935, was awarded the Mungo Park Medal, and she came back to give several lectures to RSGS. So again, you know, we've got this lovely connection with her. I would love to have gone to one of her lectures. Yeah, so